This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Very good morning and welcome to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. Today in the studio we have Joseph Ochiano, a political analyst on African affairs, and also Kofi Ali, ECOWAS citizens' rights advocate. Just to let you know, we are live on Sky Channel 291. We're also streaming live on our Facebook page, GNTV UK, and also Talk Africa page. You can go on there now. You can watch the live stream. Okay. Well, today our main topic of the day is very interesting, and when I came across this issue, to be honest with you, myself, I was really troubled. If you've traveled back home, or if you're still living back home, when you fall ill and you go to the chemist to purchase a medicine, do you actually look at what's in there? Does it actually say? Does it actually do what it says on the tin? It's been reported by World Health Organization that most of the medicines across the continent, to borrow Donald Trump's words, are fake. We will touch upon that. We also have a pharmacist on the phone to explain a few things to us as to how the continent can tackle this issue. This is not just across the continent, it's a global issue, but we'll look how it's affecting the continent. We'll then turn our attentions to stories making the headlines across the continent. But as always, we start with stories making the headlines here in the UK. Again, if you want to contribute, you can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK or Talk Africa. Leave your comments on there, or you can send your text message to us on 0793-286-1328. Good morning to my guests this morning, Joseph and Kofi. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Jones. Good morning for
Glad to
having us.
have the both of you in the studio with us this morning. And Joseph, the issue of Brexit, yesterday morning, it seemed as though there was going to be some sort of a deal, but towards the end of the day, at the 11th hour, so we saw something completely different.
Yes, because as we said on this program a few weeks ago, Brexit is your deal, the two of you actually. We told you, we told you guys that this thing won't work, and if it's going to work, it's going to be a fudged working. The reality is that the chickens have come home to roost, as they would say. The Times headline says May fights to save Brexit deal after unionist veto. The Unionists, these are the party, the Anglican Party of Northern Ireland.
The
who
DUP.
Believes, okay, yeah, that believes, I'm telling Africans, who believe in continuing to be part of Queen Elizabeth's side of the globe, but they're predominantly Protestant without prejudice. But they also happen to be the political party that, with their 10 seats in Westminster, Theresa May has got to beg them and in order to sustain her government. But the reality now comes. We told you guys that Brexit is a very, very terrible thing for this country, for this tiny island that you guys think is a little heaven. So you guys vote out and go through the thing. The vast majority of the people who voted Brexit thought they were voting to get rid of Africans like yourselves out of this place. Maybe a few Russians, but predominantly probably people whom really they don't like in this island, who thought that, well, really those people who don't have jobs, those who guys are delaying to see their GPs, forgetting that actually many of the doctors, in town are Ghanaian, Nigerian, and indeed some Ugandans. But the reality is this, that now that the whole thing has come, the negotiations are taking place. Yesterday, Theresa May goes to Brussels, and I was actually doing some work and watching, and there's this big news that things have turned around very, very quickly. We're going to come out with a big deal. But as it happens, the DUP simply had, for some reason, I'm actually not very clear, had not probably been very well briefed, because as it happens, it is about the wording of the program. They scuppered the deal. But the point is in Northern Ireland. This is one tiny little island, Northern Ireland. It gets broken into pieces, and I call it broken like Africa was broken. 6 provinces, remain part of the United Kingdom. The issue is, what happens as part of the Good Friday Agreement, those days when the deals between the two islands plus Britain settled the long-standing peace talks. I'm sort of going to go on a bit because it helps the context. Part of the idea was that, well, the border between the two countries would there would not be checks, as it were. But now the issue is, now that Britain has voted to be out of the European Union, Ireland is very much of a European nation. What do? How do you police these borders when it comes to trade, freedom of goods and peoples? And I think that's the point of contention. But one quick surprising thing for me is the DUP to suggest that they don't want Northern Ireland to have a special deal on trade, with the European Union. Much as for them, the implication is that it means that Northern Ireland will have a specialist link with Europe and probably closer to the Republic of Ireland, which makes them less British in the interest of the DUP. Politically, actually, if Sinn Féin, the party that most of them are fearing, plays it actually very well, it means that actually the people in Northern Ireland are actually able to say, regardless of the outcome, that you, the DUP, are the ones who persuaded the British government to make sure that the privileges we're supposed to be having or we're going to have from Europe, does not play into our hands. So politically, I think this is not going to be bad for, in my opinion, bad for the Unionist Party, indeed as I told this program. But unfortunately, it's a difficult thing to tell, and as I said, it's very difficult, and to be fair to the British government, it's very difficult how to manage, a border link where you don't want to put a border, you don't want to put cameras, but, the two countries, which is basically one road here, the other road down there, and it's very open. It's unlike your borders between Ghana and other places, probably much easier to police, it's a tough one.
Kofi, you want to touch on it briefly before we move on?
Yes. Sometimes I think we need to be a bit practical about this subject on the issue of the Brexit. I wish I've seen my colleague Joseph on air when we were on air fighting for remain. Today I'm being accused of being leave. No problem. We are where we are now. And what are the challenges? To be honest with you, issue of migration, if we want to say that was what was used to decide the feeling of the people of this country, those who are here. I mean, what is happening in Libya? What's happening in Togo? All those places, migration counts, America counts. So people are always uncomfortable with others coming to their land. That's not an issue. And there are reasons. But the issue here is we have what we call a free or loose border. If you've been in the EU before and you've traveled across ECOWAS countries before, where I have, you could see the difference. But that's what changed my way of seeing the world. To move from Ghana to Nigeria, it's like you are going through the eye of a needle. A camel going through an eye. It's difficult. Here, you just move freely. And that was easier with the Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland because of the European Union free movement. Now that Britain is leaving the EU, right, there will be movement of goods and services because that's what the union is all about, and that will be regulated by rules and regulations. Now you have Britain that has left. That decision to leave then means that goods, because Northern Ireland is more or less isolated from the capital, from the central, and they want trade as well, and they trade more with Dublin, they trade more with Republic of Ireland. It's
actually their home.
Good. Okay. Now that the agreement has taken away all this problem because they are all in the EU. Now that you are going to change things, they will, whatever you do, there will be that hard border because goods will move. Whatever they do, that thing will come.
You think there will be hard border?
There is no way around. That's why. From the word go, the European Union, and the beautiful thing for most of you who didn't see, you see that it was a meeting between Theresa May, you watch the television, and Jean-Claude Juncker. If it's in West Africa, it will be Nanado leading or this one leading. The presidents will be putting themselves in front. Here is the head of the union itself, who is not a president of any country, representing the 27, against the head of the United Kingdom, in this case, Theresa May. Right. And the two are talking. And what they are having issues on here is, we first have to address certain fundamental issue before we go into trade. Because after the whole thing, trade will come in, whether we like it or not.
Kofi, but the thing is, I don't know, maybe Joseph, you might want to answer this one as well. I'm sure the EU, Northern and Republic Ireland, Great Britain, everybody don't want any border, don't want any hard border. So it doesn't take a genius to be able to sit down and work this out.
It's actually common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense.
Nobody
It's
wants a
common
border,
sense
and it's interesting.
Who
My brother hopes that there will be a border. I really don't see a border returning in the place.
What do you mean by nobody wants a border? There is a border. Let me make something clear.
No.
When you are traveling from Cali to enter this place, the way you move, be patient with me. The way you move from Germany into France, or you move from France to Belgium, it's not the same way you'll be moving through Cali to go and come.
We're talking of a hard
it's
border.
a hard border.
We're talking of, okay, let Joseph finish.
No, but
please.
I think one, we're talking about a hard border, and then two, Calais, France and Britain are not Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
Ireland is one united island. So actually, the administration of the two is contention between Dublin and sort of London. So it's a very, very complicated thing, number one. Number two, these are one peoples only separated by some funny things.
Like who were separated on the continent of Africa?
No,
so
we can always come back and discuss the Afghan
that one.
No, we can always come and discuss the Afghan. But quite clearly, I don't see a hard border, in Northern Ireland. The point is, how does London, Dublin, Belfast, resolve
this issue,
the three issue plus the European Union, and the European Union are actually quite fine. They really don't care. They see that the only thing is, if you want the deal, it is here. Actually, at the end of the day, it's much more about Ireland, the main island, versus Britain. In reality, the European Union is.
Remember, all goods that goes into Ireland ends up in the EU market. Okay. Always have to get that.
All right.
So
because Ireland is part of the EU anyways.
All right. Then Britain will be using that to be flooding items there. Okay. They are not joking. They know what they are talking about.
We're going on a quick break. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. Well, we started the show on a positive note.
Indeed. Very, very positive for you, Jones, the Brexit. The two of us are remaining.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Are you doing something illegal in there?
No. What? Your lesbian fixation? Huh? You call that a lesbian fixation? It is happening live. I am just coming from their room.
Drama. This cannot continue. We cannot continue hiding our true feelings.
Hey, why are you locking the door?
He who carries the load knows his weight. So what do we do now?
We bang on the door till she opens it.
What the hell is going on?
We just came out of that room and what we saw there didn't even come close to two women.
Sometimes the trap doesn't catch the prey you set it for.
Why Solombi? These girls are becoming troublesome.
Are we supposed to tell our clients to wait so we go buy shampoo? We deliver to our clients irrespective of our challenges.
I shall be back. You won't get rid of me so easily.
I love social media. I am social media. So I've decided I'm going to hijack your screens for the next 60 minutes as we surf through your Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and all of it. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Social media is not just any media. It means fun and connecting to your favorite personalities online from any part of the globe. And when I say fun, I mean real fun. FNN Social.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. In the studio, we have Joseph Uchan, a political analyst on African affairs. Also, Kofi Ali, ECOWAS Citizens' Rights Advocate. You can go onto our Facebook page. We're streaming live on Facebook, GNTV UK, also on Talk Africa. We're also live on Sky channel 291, okay? If you're watching us and if you want to contribute, the number to call is 0203-286-0185. 0203-286-0185. Before we move on to the stories making headlines across the continent, Kofi, there's another story with regards to pedophiles.
200 pedophiles. You see, the story informs us of one thing. That with every good thing, there's a bad side.
Come closer to your mic for me, Kofi.
For every good thing, there's a bad side. And for every bad thing, there's a good side. It's how we manage it. The story here has to do with technological exploitation. People streaming live, videos about children. I mean, generally, this is something that goes on. Now, children are now being targeted. And that story here is hitting the work on how the police and the institutions are going about solving the problem, which to me is a wonderful thing. What we have here is that they said 200 pedo swap. In other words,
you're moving away from your microphone.
In other words, 200 suspects, pedophiles, have been arrested in 1 week. In an internet crackdown. That is investigation. One of the risk of the use of this live to groom, that's video and so on, streaming.
Live chats,
to groom victims.
Yeah.
What we have here is that the National Crime Agency, I need to read this, said a UK-wide operation in October had saved 245 children from harm, and 192 people were detained. Look at the quantity of number.
What I'm interested in, Kofi, with that story is the type of people that were seen
to be involved. And that
is
what we have here. It said 18 of those who were detained to be in a position of trust were working in areas such as teachers, healthcare workers, and criminal justice system.
Yeah.
That then tells us that, you see, we are not safe anywhere.
Yeah.
We are not safe anywhere, especially these children. One thing I was talking to before we started the program, I happened to be talking to a person who has a transgender, this thing. And one of the things he's hitting on, she said I should call her she, is hitting on constantly that she was raped as a child. Yeah. So that tells us that these children, when you abuse them as children, some of them can use it as a means. I was telling the person that probably you have a tendency that you never notice, and there's a reason probably what is attracting people to you as a boy, but that will be you. But what we are noticing from this here is that we have children who are being groomed, children whose pictures are being taken up, and most of these pictures do get films or video do get into hands, and this could be used to blackmail them. It could be used for, and even their colleagues in school might have access to them, and that could bring a trauma to a child, and that affect the whole family. Mothers, parents here have been called by the crime and this thing, like we have the National Police Chief Council and then the National Crime Agency working together effectively. This kind of result is what we want, because by so doing, you then have children assured. They've been informed. Parents have been informed to make sure they want their children, educate them to know the dangers, because children will always be children. They sometimes think they are adults and get into areas that are gray, and then people take advantage of them, and then the children themselves are being encouraged. Anything you think you are not comfortable with, please quickly tell mommy, tell daddy, tell someone, so something can be done.
With regards to this story, I find I'm a bit alarmed with the fact that even teachers, civil servants have been
criminal justice, healthcare.
Jones,
within the criminal justice.
Jones, when I was last your guest, we discussed the impact of technology, social media on our communities. And we looked at many positive aspects of it, and indeed most of it are actually positive. But there's two elements to this. One is the challenges around social media, where right now my little daughter, who's 2+, is just about beginning to want to dominate not only my phone, that one I've beaten her to it, but now my laptop, and she's opting out of watching CBBS, which is a television thing, to now wanting to go on to my laptop. Only within the last few days did I manage to say that, well, when we wake up, it's no longer about laptops. So I'm even closing that. Only on exceptions, and sometimes when I'm buying out, if I want to be able to do something.
Yeah.
The point is this, that these things are extremely prevalent, and two, they're prevalent amongst and around ourselves. I happen to have met a healthcare worker not so long ago who was an African, by the way, an African of somewhat of African descent, not from recently from the mainland, but who talked about having a stepchild who abused their own child, but which stepchild turned out to have been abused by a member of their own family. So while it's actually true that these things are actually happening, and indeed actually part of your concern about the professionals, don't forget, we've got issues with teachers, issues with social workers. Now we've got implications and indications that even issues with politicians. So we've got issues of parents and leaders in our own families. So many of these things are very much about power. But on the other hand, maybe sometimes you actually, by implication, is it something particularly wrong with some of these individuals mentally, in whatever way? I think really the real call should be, as my colleague says, that we should be very, very much alert, particularly as parents.
Yeah.
But that too, that some of these other things should become much more open, because maybe in Africa, with or without technology, these things are actually happening. And I also know that in particular certain sections of Africa where it is believed, particularly men who abuse women, are known and without prejudice to faith. Apparently, I've been told by a Muslim friend, a female Muslim friend, who actually says that, well, in their part of Africa, I will not indicate, their male men are known to be going on to date other women predominantly non-Muslim women.
Yeah.
And it's acceptable. But nobody talks about it. But for you, the woman sort of will be stoned technically to death. So what am I saying? That as a community of Africans in the diaspora and at home, there are issues and cases where we see things happen, we tend to keep it quiet. I think we shouldn't. But with pedophilia, where these things are going to happen, including with adults, people cheating and things like that, couples, somebody is snoring next pillow, and then decide you're busy having negotiations for a next deal for the following day. I think it's alarming.
Okay. All right. Kofi, just for time reasons, we need to move on. We need to move on to our next segment. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones. We are streaming live on Facebook. You can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK. Also, Talk Africa page. You can also go on our Twitter. We are on Twitter. You can go on there as well. If you want to comment, use the hashtag Talk Africa. Okay, now let's move on to our next topic. This is stories making the headlines across the continent. Okay, and then we will start off by, I'll come to you, Joseph. It's a story of South Africa. South Africa's corruption watchdog has found officials misused millions of dollars during Nelson Mandela's funeral.
I have been at the center of, not really at the same scale, but I've been at the center of a national event like this on the African continent, where it's basically state events.
Yeah.
And in a very strange way, when I read the story, yesterday was actually, this thing came back to me on how you can actually see things happening, and then you begin to wonder how are people how are people being held to account on some of these things. But much more surprising on this, unfortunately, one, it's about the global icon Nelson Mandela, and two, it is about icon Nelson Mandela and the most powerful and sophisticated political party, supposedly, up to now I'm beginning to wonder, the ANC, African National Congress of South Africa, being involved in this. But probably the less surprising thing is what we now know about corruption in South Africa, generally, because South Africa also happens to be a fairly corrupt country where the leadership up to the presidents are alleged to be people who like to enjoy quite a bit of money, which is probably not well unaccounted for. It's very sad for Nelson Mandela's legacy. But to me, it worries me because South Africa has been, in my opinion, the lead African country, and I challenge Nigerians for a long time that as you grow big, you need to show that you're the real African leaders. So now both South Africa and Nigeria lose my leadership line today, and then I probably give you guys to Ghanaians, particularly now that you're president. president, although I really don't know him ideologically as taking the line that he would normally take, is able to take a position, to talk to European leaders, in this case, French President Macron, a topic that he'll come to, we'll come to much later, in a manner that he does. So probably Ghana very soon will take the lead, and it will be a privilege, if I remember the one tweet to make that reference. But it's a very sad story.
This is not the first time we've heard this, especially across the continent, when there's such huge or state events. A lot of things get inflated, and then we look down the line, what the money was actually meant to be used for, it's not always useful.
In fact, interesting, on this particular case, the money was actually meant for development, and development classified as healthcare, mad schools, right? Mad schools that are mad have to be replaced. That's old schools, and sanitation. Yeah. Interesting enough, people diverted the money in the first place because that was not for funeral. It was diverted to the Mandela funeral budget. And in the Mandela funeral budget,
the money had to come from somewhere.
It has to come from somewhere. So that is the biggest problem. Now, when they diverted the money, then they follow the money down the line because they diverted the money to the dead body. Then they become vultures. And what are they doing? Irregularities. According to the consent that was raised by the public, watch, the officer in charge of that, saying that a lot of irregularities, services were paid for, but nothing provided for. Money went, if a t-shirt and so on were printed at exorbitant prices, that would have been unnecessary.
$24.
So that then tell you that, you see, we do have that problem in politics, where because people are desperate, especially in a country where politics is about how much you have got for you to be able to get things done. And then you have political party members taking advantage of that and touching money, because afterwards they will use the money to move on and buy people and buy vote. So we do have this problem. But the most important thing is having someone brave enough to come out to say this is happening. And they know them, because they even came up with letter-headed paper of services that were paid for and not rendered. So if you have issues like that, then there can be prosecution, even if not under Zuma. Assuming it's able to block it. That's the beautiful thing about it, because there are evidence afterwards they could be prosecuted.
Okay, now according to reports, the money that was used or was taken was 300 million rands, which is equivalent to $22 million and 60 million pounds. Yes. Joseph, I know you wanted to.
Yes, quickly, there are two elements to this. One is I'm actually genuinely quite surprised. We knew, and most of the world knew, that at some stage Mr. Mandela had to go. Yeah. How a country like South Africa could not, a government like the ANC government could not actually plan enough. That is one. Number two, in the unlikely event that they actually did go ahead and plan, and for me it's not even about the ANC headed paper. Mandela was the ANC chief, so ANC was likely, it was expected, the family, ANC, the government, and then the wider element. So there will be layers. So ANC would be a very central player in this, but there is accountability element. But how the government could not plan sufficiently for a Mandela funeral, number one. Number two, again, Mandela was used and sold in many other ways. How we could not actually go ahead and play a global polity where people were playing, waiting to go and see whose hand was going to be shaken hardest and who was going to get the loudest clap. Thankfully, it was Fidel Castro and, of course, Uncle Bob led, and of course my brother Barack. So they got the three loudest claps, the right guys.
And plus the selfie, they took a selfie, didn't they?
well, what's the very interesting thing about it? Like my colleague just said, Joseph, it makes sense. See, when presidents or when people in a country, when we identify a state funeral, the state must lead. The state must lead. A budget must be made clear so that you know that everything will be accounted for. It must be properly structured. Normally, when we have this, people will take advantage because there will be contract issues. That is where you see party men running around.
I think it's very likely both. Yeah. It's very likely both. That probably the state put in some money, and then, of course, because it's a party time, people pull out, from the other sources and then misuse it the way they did.
If that happened, then when you have money being siphoned in, it becomes in a way unconstitutional and illegal because the money is budgeted for something by law. When you divert it, that is what we call corruption.
I wonder if the money that was taken out was used for the right things, I wonder if we'll be here talking about it.
I mean, that's the point. I'm saying that actually, had it been taken and used correctly, now, it would be neither here nor there. Because I said Mandela, the name, and Mandela, the experience, really helped to pump in a lot of money that, in my opinion, at some stage in a conversation inside South Africa, actually thought, well, it's a free advert. South Africans didn't use Mandela well enough to generate resources.
What is the right thing? What is it? That's the question.
The right thing is use the money what is meant to be used for.
And the money is meant for toilets.
Okay. I beg your pardon. All right. Sanitation. Okay.
It's not for Mandela's funeral.
This is Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we will look at what the Ghana president said to the French president. He made a really bold statement. This is a video that's been circulating. It's gone viral across social media. We'll touch upon it. We'd also like to hear from you. This is Talk Africa. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Do you know where we are?
And waking up every morning like it's just another day.
We can try again. You have to fight.
I have fought.
Not walk away whilst I'm still talking to you. Do you know where we are?
Switch HQ, that's right. My name is Ludwig Jr. and from now on you're going to see my shows coming to you straight from London exclusively. What, Roy? You're going to be seeing events from here, you're going to be seeing interviews.
Happy birthday movies.
I think God listens to me a lot.
I'm good, thank you.
Exclusively.
Please, Lydia, first thing, keep what? Swish.
What is it is entertainment? This is the mint they added to his Swiss HQ. About what?
Hello, my name is Dorothy, Miss Face of Ghana UK 2016. And I'm Sharon Rose.
This is Mimi.
I came to blah, 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 blah.
This is Ghana, man, so we're representing.
Swiss HQ, we saying.
I'm just going to be in the crowd.
How are you already know? My name is SARKODIE, aka you know what time it is, aka Money No Big Problem, aka what else? Now stand up. You're watching Switch HQ. Woo!
Majority.
To another edition of Switch HQ. That's right. My name is Ludwig Jr. and from now on you're going to see my show.
News Redefined. Wondering what's going on in the life of your favorite entertainment personality? Wonder no more because the Daily Setbit has got you covered with the latest in entertainment news, gossip, facts, rumors, and of course, some sizzling interviews.
Not just that, did you know actor Jimmy Fox's real name is Eric Malone Bishop? I bet you didn't know. On the Did You Know segment, we bring you some mind-boggling facts you might not know about your favorite celebrity.
We don't only set the trend with our stories, we bring you trendy videos and images that have gone viral on social media. Your entertainment just got better.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. We are live on Sky Channel 291. You can also watch the live stream on Facebook, GNTV UK, or go onto our Facebook page, Talk Africa. We're also live on GN Radio, so you can listen to GN Radio, DAB across London. Sky Channel 0185 across UK. We're also on TuneIn. You can listen to us on the GN Radio. Let's move on to our next story. And as I said earlier on, this story, should I say, is making the headlines across social media, across the media, especially in Africa, where even some Nigerian actors have taken onto social media to commend the president of Ghana as he hosted the French president, Emmanuel Macron. He made a bold stance, I should say, and some people are saying that the French president looked a bit uncomfortable. Okay, let's hear what Nanado had to say.
I think there is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They're appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It is a continent of vast, arable and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We have seen it. Tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity, are right here with us. Migration and the movement of people is being presented in a manner which suggests that somehow it's a new phenomenon. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as man, the movement of people. And it has always been linked to the same thing: the failure of where you are to provide you with an opportunity, so you move somewhere else. Those of you who are familiar with 19th century European history would know that the biggest wave of immigration in 19th century Europe, the latter part of it, came from Ireland and from Italy. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries. What are the institutions that work, that would allow us to have good governance, to have accountable governance, to make sure that the monies that are placed at the disposal of leaders are used for the interests of the state and not for those of the leaders.
Wow, interesting there. On the phone, we have editor of Alternative Africa, Idris Adesina, on the phone. Idris, good morning to you this morning. Idris, are you there? Okay, I think Idris is not online. We'll try and get him back online. We want to talk to Idris because he actually published this story on his platform. So I just wanted to get his point of view on that one. Now, listening to that, Joseph, Nanado is the president of Ghana, and I think for some time now, a lot of people have been waiting for an African president to stand up and not to talk in a way to disrespect the Europeans or the Westerners, but to make a bold, firm statement.
It's not the first time, and an African president in contemporary terms, your own Kwame Nkrumah that you guys don't like, took a position along those lines in the 60s and rather very progressive. My own Milton Obote developed Uganda all the major national hospitals in Uganda, were built within about 8 years, using mainly locally generated resources within those times. Those were the days. Thomas Sankara, the army man, and I don't really like army men, came in and became the only army person whom I regard as a leader in Africa, took a position. And of course, interestingly, he told a French president, Francois Mitterrand, but it is believed that Claude Mitterrand was too angry for Sankara to survive a long time. But that's a slightly different story. But maybe programs like yours.
It's a different time. It's a different context. It's a different environment.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, what Nana is saying today, is really the position we should have continued with from the beginning of our times of independence. And the other, number one. Number two, probably some of the more recent African leaders may have made these statements and people were playing around with it. The point is, it's extremely commonsensical. Interestingly, he is actually saying one of the things that leads to some of the topics that we've actually had on this program, including what's happening in Libya. He was rather bold. But not only is that, he's talking as a president. If you watched French president's first tour of Africa when he was actually in Burkina Faso, actually put on my Facebook page, I was actually quite impressed by the number of Burkinabe students, the manner in which they actually tackled him. This man, when he returns to Paris, he's actually going to sit and think twice about, how he actually looks at Africa. The challenge to me is how many of Nanado's colleagues in your ECOWAS not only agree with him, but they're able to work together and make sure that this becomes a reality. How many of them across the mainland African continent are able to work together on many of these things? The point is this, that most of this aid actually comes with attachments. There was once upon a time when my own native Ugandan, don't tell anyone else, was 54% of our development aid, back supported by the West. Now, in as long as that, when you go to Kampala, you find at one of the ministries, the Department of, some of the senior officials are guys who are coming from London. Some of them will be 26-year-olds who've just completed their masters, and then they're becoming master's degrees in probably economics, or sometimes it might even be in history, which would be maybe history of exploitation. But they're now experts in managing your development programs inside your own country. So this is long overdue. Now, the only quick thing is that I know your president, and I met him before he was president. I've not met him yet since he became president. I have not had him make a big speech since he was president. I was always very cautious about him, but he's a very articulate guy. But in terms of ideological thinking, I did not expect it would come from this. But he also happens to be someone who was very schooled, parented from Nkrumah's family backgrounds, and very well schooled in the West. Whether he's able to pull his upper middle class African experiences to the realities in Ghana, and actually, if he actually goes ahead and does that in Ghana, then this may just about be the beginning of a new dawn of a new era that the African continent by and large needs.
It's funny you mentioned Nkrumah there, because many Ghanaians know when it comes to the history of Ghana, it was his father's party which were opposed to Nkrumah. However, he benefited from Nkrumah anyway.
And he did.
Yes, he did. Before I come to you, Kofi, let's speak to Idris. We've got Idris back on the line. Idris, additional editor of Alternative Africa. Good morning to you, Idris. You published this story this morning, the news that's making headlines all over the world.
Good morning, Jones. Good morning, and I'm very happy to have been listening to your guest there. Very articulate guest, and thank you for being an African.
Idris, to say thank you.
Oh, I am an African like Thabo Mbeki.
Kofi is also here, so thank you for whatever commendation.
Oh, then it's a celebration of African heritage.
I mean, the speech which a lot of people have commended the president of Ghana for, is this going to be a new trend across the continent, do you think, Idris?
Yeah, that's a very serious question, which no one of your guests, including me, will to say categorically whether it is going to be right or not. But what we are saying is that he's made a stand. He's done that. Everybody has seen it. I was very happy to have had such a thing. And unfortunately, you couldn't find that story in any of the international media. That's another dimension to it. They refused to toe that line. They rather talk about the integration and security that France wanted to give to Ghana. No, but this is a man who said, look, this has not worked before. It's not going to work now, and it will not work in the future if you continue to tie your aids to something that we have to give you. But that's not the issue. The issue, according to what your guest has said, is how many of Uganda's colleagues in Africa are willing to take such a stand. That's one. The second one is how much of this talk is going on among the leadership in Africa, whether in ECOWAS or in African Union. Don't forget, we said something very close to this about a few weeks ago, when this same Kofi Annan said, look, we cannot be beggars. But they should be talking about this amongst themselves. They should be talking to themselves. This thing is becoming embarrassing. You have to do this before you give you this, particularly to circumvent our own culture and traditions. It's unfortunate, but if this is going to be the beginning of a better continent for Africa, wow, that is beautiful. But to say it's going to be based on what Dodo and I have said now, I don't know, because we still see them all. They still keep their money here. They still keep their children here. They still do everything here. They still tell them to bring the money and resources of Africa here. And when they fall apart, they become corrupt officers.
Okay, Kofi, let me get you to come in. What Nanado said, I mean, I think you agreed with him was that the VT was being played. But do you think, is it feasible, or is it just lip service?
What Nanado is saying, it says a lot. He's only saying what a lot of the people on the continent of Africa, West Africa, Ghana, are actually saying. But it's not about what we say, it's about what we do as well. That is where the problem is. Listen to what Nanado was saying. When you look at it carefully, and if you follow the dimension my brother Joseph and probably Additional is following, you see, I think they look at this problem like we have a kind of league table. Country 1, country 2, country 3, country 4. And then they are playing, and we want to see which of them is doing very well. That is not how to address this problem. The whole thing is that Nanado said this continent is not about France and Ghana. It's not about competition between France and Ghana. It's a competition between either the European Union, because European Union was there.
Okay, hold on. Idris, just stay on the line for me, okay? I'll come back to you, Idris. Stay on the line. Let's hear Kofi talk.
So, what I want to do here is that he said this continent. Therefore, we are not talking about France or Macron and what do you call it, Nanado, right? Everybody who sit at certain position have their own view of looking at issues. And Nanado has articulated certain information in a very sensible manner. See what he said. He said, we cannot continue, and it's not the only one saying it, so many people are saying it, to depend on the handout. In other words, the French taxpayer. If you work in this country, it's not just France, America or Europe, even China. They gave me my pay slip. I look at it, there is somewhere they write international development. They deduct it. You understand? They deduct, the taxpayer deduct. So why is this money? That is what they are using to finance education and healthcare in Ghana. Yeah. And Nanado is saying that the French taxpayer is not saying anything negative to Macron. They have something to do with their money, of course. But you squeeze out this money from the taxpayer here, and then you come and use it to take care of us. Nanado is saying it is time we deal with it ourselves. In other words, we are going to replace the French taxpayer with the Ghanaian taxpayer. The question is, the taxpayer only pay when he has a job. So we are talking about job creation here. You see the way the whole thing goes. Because the French taxpayer is paying because he's got a job. If the French taxpayer doesn't have a job, he will not pay. He has paid for his healthcare in his country and his education. In Europe, they have paid for it. They're giving people free houses. In our place, the only thing we know how to do is to talk. We are not creating jobs. We are not seriously looking at issues. And when we finish, because we are looking at the country one by one, the same Nanado's finance minister and Nanado himself, he said Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, and to some extent Nigeria, they export almost 99% or 90% of cocoa to the market. They are fighting among themselves, so they can't set prices. When they then send it, the buyer tell them how much to buy it. So it's not about the quantity you take to the market, it's what you get out of it. Therefore, this talking has been there for some time. We are saying the youth have to get up and take their destiny. Look at the age of Macron and look at Nanado. Until we get the kind of Africa, until we get the kind of ECOWAS, until we get the kind of Ghana where the youth will say, you know something, we are now tired of big daddies. We want to take our we can't
get
go
the
on.
kind of Africa Kofi is trying to say here.
I think it's basically about institutions, building institutions, about governance, and I think probably I think some of these the speech was fairly lauded. Actually, when he was talking about the French taxpayer, that was actually the most diplomatic he could really say. He was basically simply saying that the money that he used to basically come and buy our positions, and of course some of the things we know, particularly in French, particularly in French-speaking countries, where it has been known that some of the leaders use monies, African monies, to go ahead and actually fund the other way around, fund political parties and organizations and individuals, including leaders in France. That's one. Number two, some of this development aid is probably not necessarily even money that reaches our people. You give Uganda $10 million and then people come and have handshakes. When underneath, people are basically they're mining your gold, or perhaps they're using your place as a base to go ahead and kill 6 million Congolese. I think if we were able to continue focusing on governance, building institutions, making sure that we have leaders that don't stay and hang on to power for 30 years, for 20 years, people who don't come in the military. Ghana is still quite a good example where we know that when somebody comes after 5 years, somebody like Nanadu, we're able to go ahead 4 or 5 years on average. We across the continent, we're able to go ahead and put them to task and check the manifesto and the constitutions. Manifestos. Very likely, we know that once we continue to invest in health, we continue to invest in education, we invest in infrastructure, we invest in research, we invest in value addition like Kofi is suggesting in terms of our cocoa, cotton, and including our minerals, some of the things that probably Botswana did. And Botswana is being praised. It's not necessarily the best. It's just being praised because they decided to share 50-50 predominantly with, again, external forces. There's really no reason why we don't do the Mugabe way, where you actually share 80% and then you use 20% based on technology and the disaster profits. In that way, create jobs, build our institutions, enable our societies, and give us the ability to be able to have conversations on equal terms. When Clinton was beginning to say that we want to begin to talk as colleagues and comrades, they realized that actually Africa was changing. But somehow that change seemed to fade. Leaders did not really emerge who were able to have conversations with these guys as equal partners. People continue to sort of play yes to Western leaders on the African continent. And that's why I say with Nanado, I'm not quite sure who else down there. I was hopeful in Kikwete. Kikwete came and left in Tanzania. The guy who replaced him, Comrade Magolufi, is a very, very good guy. But you guys don't also give him very good press. Right. But how much that is able to happen in North, East, South, and West, I don't know. But hopefully it will be much more about that. Taking ownership.
All right.
And also
Kofi and Idris, I need to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this.
Please,
this is Africa with Jones. Kofi, I have to let Kofi get his say. Otherwise, we will not stop. Okay? All right. Okay, Kofi, we're going on a quick break. When we come back, we continue our discussion. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Majority of you only pay attention to us after years of unremittent persistence and rejections, whilst we challenge the way it has always been done. We have made courageous decisions many of you wouldn't dare dream, forgetting you can live it when you dream it. Wake up with an idea. Research the egg out of the idea. Write a massive business plan, raise money, and create business. Wave goodbye to friends and families as your life is now your business. Stick with it, even on the bad days. Following your massive expansion into a worldwide domination, retire to your favorite highland or go back to step one and wash, rinse, and repeat.
The CEO's Chair, showing on GNTV UK.
Next time, not joke with no nuts family. I feel that.
Foreigners are in deciding for us, what to do when it comes to our music. This is just so not cool.
Charlie, just forget them. If you're not ready to pay our artist like $30,000 or $90,000, then where are we going?
Talent get case. You go see no one kid you can't stay top. He do small acrobatics here and there, or people they clap. Why this kid get talent? How?
Instead of beefing each other, Ghanaian artists can actually join hands together and promote themselves internationally.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa with me, Jones Iwa. Just to let you know, we are streaming live on Facebook. You can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK, and also Talk Africa page. We're also live on Sky Channel 291. If you want to contribute, you can go on our Facebook page and leave your comments there. I will read your messages. I've seen a few messages on our Facebook page. Also, you can call in on 0203 286 0185. If you want to send a text message, it's 0793 286 1328. Today, our main topic of the day, we're looking at World Health Organization have released a report saying that most medicines across the continent appeared to be fake. Okay, so I'm asking, when you do go back home, or if you're living back home, when you go to the counter to get your medicine, do you check what medicine you're consuming? We will talk about that very, very soon. Today in the studio, we have Joseph Ochiano, who is a political analyst on African affairs. Also, Kofi Ali, ECOWAS citizens' rights advocate here in the studio. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the president of Ghana as he hosted the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, and he made a bold speech with regards to aid. We've had Idris Adesina, who's the editor of Alternative Africa, on the phone. He's still on there. We'll get his comments as well. And we've got Kofi as well. But Kofi, before I come to you, let me just read a few messages of our social media. And this is from Al Hassan Hangba. Al Hassan saying, good morning. You are doing a good work. Thank you, Al Hassan. Good morning, Henrietta. Joyce, this is from Joyce. Joyce is saying, well done, one President Nanado. We don't want France a freak. We are capable of managing our own affairs. Bravo. Joyce also says, well, President Gbagbo of Ivory Coast tried to do same thing, and today he's in the ICC. Let's remember Sekou Touré, Sankara Nkrumah, Gaddafi, and Patrice Lumumba. Joyce again is also saying, it's a new beginning of a new era. Nanado will deliver. France cannot offer anything good to Ghana. France has damaged all its former colonies. If France has help to offer, they should go to Congo where help is needed. Okay, keep your thoughts and comments coming in. We'll do our best to read them. Kofi, let me come to you before I go to Idris. You wanted to make a point.
You see, President Nanado, I think is a president. In my lifetime, I never saw Nkrumah. If I did, I was a baby, tiny. I don't even know the difference. But this man, the more he speaks, the more he commands my respect. I represent ECOWAS citizens' rights. When President Nanado won the election, the first thing he did was to rally around all the 15 West African states and making sure that he has a good rapport and relationship with all the 15 countries. Within the ECOWAS, President Nanado is doing very well, very, very well, that we really commend. We are watching him and he's doing wonderful work. He made it clear that he has no duty or no role to interfere in any other member state's business. But he made it also clear that we share a destiny together. That is the greatest thing. Now, this destiny together is where the problem is. How do we collectively address the issue? The issue we have here is about job creation, youth empowerment, the future, cultural transformation. And we can only do this together. Nobody can do it alone. We must understand that, because it's about competition. When we are going within the Europeans and dealing with them, the Europeans are too powerful for us, even as individual countries. Britain can take all the 15 countries down. Talk less of together. So together we have a chance. Now, if you watch, I started by saying that when you watch Theresa May, she was talking to 27 countries. 27.
So what are you saying? Nanado should be communicating with other heads of states? Is that what you're saying?
What we are saying is that I'm using the EU because what they have in the EU is what we are forming in West Africa.
ECOWAS.
And because I don't know what they are doing in the East Africa. And actually, we are not interested in what they are doing. We meet it at the African Union with them. Leave them alone. We need to solve our problem. But what I'm noticing is that, you see, we saw Jean-Claude Juncker representing 27 countries. The Germans are there. The Germans were not talking. The French are there. The French were not talking. Why is it Juncker who is talking to the British? Because British is an outsider and they are talking as one. So a neutral person who is not a president of any country is the one talking. When you come to our case...
So, Kofi, hold on. Are you saying Nanado shouldn't be the one talking? Is that what you're saying?
We are saying that if we are properly organized, I'm coming. Nanado can still be the president of the ECOWAS Commission. The president of the ECOWAS Commission is sitting there, Marcel de Souza. He should be the one leading in the talks because we are talking as 15 countries against one. But we have a case where the French president visited Ghana.
Yes.
So what Nanado said is a wake-up call to all of us. You understand? There was French president in Cote d'Ivoire.
But he said Ghana, not ECOWAS. Why did you criticize him for that?
But listen to me. Nanado said this continent. Nanado didn't say this country. He's not. Nanado know the difference between a country and a continent. He's not like some of us.
So that's in that case, that's inclusive, including the East Africa as well.
If it's going to be this continent, then the president of the African Union Commission is the one to lead up. You see, we have this thing. I don't know where it comes from. And our understanding of the challenge is looking like every rat can go to war with the lions.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
No, Kofi. But then we need to understand the African Union. You yourself, you criticize the African Union of not being able to do what they're supposed to do. So if he's taking advantage to voice this out, there's nothing wrong with it. Let me get Idris to come in, okay? I'll give you another time to talk. Idris?
Yeah.
You heard Kofi talking. You want to comment on what Kofi has said?
Yeah, Kofi is always Kofi. I know that very well. He's more concerned about ECOWAS than Africa. He said that several times, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is that Macron did not visit ECOWAS. He didn't visit ECOWAS. He didn't visit AU. Macron has visited Ghana, and from there we have, from what Akufo-Addo has said, we have had the mind and spirit of what African country, other African countries are trying to do. He said it very emphatically. He said he has not worked in the past. They know themselves he has not worked. If you are going to try to do it now, it's not going to work. If you attempt to do it in the future, it's not going to work, and they've seen it every time. So what we are saying is that, look, whether it is ECOWAS, it is Southeast or whatever you call it, we are let's beginning to chart a new course for Africa. Let's beginning to see it done. I know it's going to be very difficult to replicate that across the African continent because individual countries differ. And the relationship between these Western countries and every other countries also differs. They relate to them based on their historical antecedents. But what we are trying to say is that, look, we have seen it done. This is the way it should be. Rome, people say Rome has not been built in a day. Yes, I know. But let's take a process at a time. This consciousness is there before you begin to see what is happening around the continent now. Although people are still trying to come here, but a good number of us are beginning to see the reason why things are not working. So it's a step at a process, a step at once. Akufo-Addo has said what he said. I know Nigerian president will do the same thing. I know some other African continents, particularly the West Africans, will do the same thing. But yes, they've said it. What is the next step now is, after saying this publicly to these Western countries, the next step is for them to now begin to talk among themselves, trade among themselves, set institutions among them, so that we build institutions, we don't build people. So that when people become people, institutions can whip them into line. That is what is going to sustain a country and a continent. The institutions should be built. I understand that this damage has been done for a very long time. Yes, but let's begin to do our own at a particular time. If Ghana is not, Akufo-Addo cannot rebuild Ghana within his period of office, but let him do something that will outweigh, that will last longer for generations to come. Everybody is still talking about Nkrumah now, and Nkrumah is dead very long time ago. That's exactly what we are saying. Let's take steps. Let be institutions now that at least us in office, so that generations coming can begin to feel a sense of being Africans. This issue is too much. Everything is just coming to Africa. Everybody is going to Africa now. Is it because they like Africa? No. It's because they find so many things attractive in Africa now. Everybody is going. China is going. Macron is going. So many people are going, including Israel.
Okay. Idris is saying that everybody's going to Africa. There must be some sort of an interest there, Joseph.
No, there has always been interest in Africa, and Africa has always been the source for, from human labor in a very crude manner in terms of slavery then to slavery today, and to mineral wealth where, actually Nanado talks rather modestly about 30% actually global. I need to be able to go ahead and research that figure because I actually suspect it might actually be higher than 30% of global mineral resource. But regardless, that would be a very, very huge still amount relative to actually where we are as nation states. It's interesting, actually, Israel is mentioned because I would be a very reluctant supporter of Israel joining the African Union, both on ideological and historical terms, including the realities today. But why are they doing it? They continue to do it because they want to replicate the story, basically using Africa as sweets, using Africa as marketplaces for exchanges, and much more so as gardens where they go ahead and plant and pick up the seed. I think what is crucial, though, interestingly, is this, that I don't know how much the mainstream media on the African continent is going to continue. It doesn't matter how far they've covered. But if the mainstream African media in Africa, across the continent, is able to turn around this speech, the way they played around with Thomas Sankara's speeches when social media wasn't there. Yeah. So that goes to schools and institutions. It pushes leaders, it pushes issues, pushes this agenda on the national, regional, and in my opinion, a continental body. When and if that is done, and I hope this conversation is actually helping enhance that Nanado, whom I don't necessarily associate with ideological, but as I said, whom I regard and relate with at one-to-one, is able to be the person who actually plants a new seed where Africans are able to run with it. And by the way, one of the reasons why it's important, one, is because he spoke it in the presence of the French president. Yeah. Number two, because he's the president of Ghana. Probably had it actually been the president of Burundi, if people would have said, well, Mr. ICC, what's going on here and there kind of stuff. So that's a possibility. Yeah. So in positively, constructively, this is something that we're able to pick and run with, regardless of whether or not is a president of Ghana rather than the president of the ECOWAS or indeed head of the African Union. How we're able to nurture this and run with it. As I said, I want to come back to Thomas Sankara, who did it with the French president, and Sankara's views and values still reign on today. Yeah. I think it is possible for us to be able to build onto this.
Well, the notion, because when this was going on, the notion that as soon as an African leader comes and speak up against, not against the West per se, but something to reignite some sort of movement or say the obvious, just quickly,
I totally agree with you, and maybe let me actually come in there very quickly. I totally agree with you, because if Thabo Mbeki actually referred to Robert Mugabe recently in a clip doing the round when they wanted regime change in Zimbabwe. I think they probably would attempt regime change, but I think we're telling the French that probably you might try it in many other countries except Ghana, because Ghana is much more harder. You guys, your democracy is getting much more entrenched, getting much more established. The institutions are much more settled. It is actually much more harder for them to do today on a Ghanaian president than it was for them to do it on Nkrumah in those days. But of course, at the end of the day, if we as Africans continue to play ball, because some of these guys are able to do this at $1 $1 million to a neighboring African head of state, they're able to play ball. I mean, to play. If you like, what they call the Nyampalas, head boys, like Museveni. You use Museveni to play around the entire region. Maybe it's possible, but I think I'm quite confident that it's much more harder to do regime change in Ghana than most other African countries.
Quickly before we go on a break.
They're very sad. I think what I want my brother, because he has repeated it 2-3 times, that we democracy in Ghana, we are not plucking it from the tree. Yes, Ghanaians are doing a lot to sustain and nurture democracy. The ECOWAS and the African Union are doing wonderful job. We've had challenges, and I'll give you on my fingertips where we had serious crisis. Remember the last time we have to go to court after the 2012 election?
Yeah.
Yes, it was Obasanjo representing ECOWAS in Ghana. that says no, you go to court. This decision has been made.
But then you also have to commend the president Nana Addo for going to court as well. So not necessarily of
at
the
that time
ECOWAS.
it was not about Nana Addo as a person, it's about a political party.
The party, yeah, and he was the leader of the party.
That felt they were being marginalized. You understand? But let's move on. Even the last election we had, there were some calls from here and there. So please don't let us pretend certain things don't exist. Another thing, you see, Nana Addo was not elected to represent Africa by Ghanaians. Nana Addo was elected to represent Ghanaians, to speak for Ghanaians, not for Africans. Let's get something straight.
He's an African.
No. I am a Ghanaian. Can I go and stand somewhere and talk and people will take it serious? No.
Because you're not a president.
Thank you. No.
You're not the president.
I'm not the president of Ghana. You understand? But I'm a Ghanaian. Nana Addo is not the president of Africa. Nana Addo is the president of Ghana. Get us. You see, the word, be patient. The word
Kofi, hold on. Nana Addo is not the president of Africa. He's the president of Ghana. Yes. Fine, that's fine.
So his
but then
voice will not carry weight.
Hold on.
Like if you
of
have
course
the president
it
of
does.
Ghana.
Of course it does.
No. If you
hold
have
on.
the president,
The reason why.
On behalf of all of us,
Hold on.
It will carry more weight.
The reason why it carries weight, okay, because he's speaking to the president of France. So therefore, it will carry. Hold on. But he's speaking for Africa. As Kofi, please let me finish. He's speaking as an African because we have a common. No. This is something common that goes across the continent. So if he speaks, there's nothing wrong with Nana Addo speaking. My time is up, Kofi. I need to take a break. This is Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. Don't worry, Kofi can carry on talking. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we continue our discussion. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
I love social media. I mean, I am social media. So I've decided I'm going to hijack your screens for the next 60 minutes as we surf through your Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, and all of it. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. Social media is not just any media. It means fun and connecting to your favorite personalities online from any part of the globe. And when I say fun, I mean real fun. FNN Social.
E-News Redefined. Wondering what's going on in the life of your favorite entertainment personality? Wonder no more because the Daily Setbit has got you covered with the latest in entertainment news, gossip, fact, rumors, and of course, some sizzling interviews.
Not just that, did you know actor Jimmy Fox's real name is Eric Malon Bishop? I bet you didn't know. On the Did You Know segment, we bring you some mind-boggling facts you might not know about your favorite celebrity.
We don't only set the trend with our stories, we bring you trendy videos and images that have gone viral on social media. Your entertainment just got better.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
You might ask an artist to explain his art, or ask a poet to explain his poem, but it defeats the purpose. The meaning is only clear through the search. Painting is the silence of thought, the music of sight. Painting is just another way of keeping a diary. If you could say it in words, there'll be no reason to paint.
Doing something illegal in there?
No. What? Your lesbian fixation? Huh? You call that a lesbian fixation? It is happening live. I am just coming from their room.
Irama, this cannot continue. We cannot continue hiding our true feelings.
Hey, why are you locking the door?
He who carries the load knows his weight. So what do we do now?
We bang on the door till she opens it.
What the hell is going on? We just came out of that room and what we saw there didn't even come close to 2 women.
You know, sometimes the trap doesn't catch the prey you set it for.
Why Solombi? Charlie, these girls are becoming troublesome.
Are we supposed to tell our clients to wait so we go buy shampoo? We deliver to our clients irrespective of our challenges.
I shall be back. You won't get rid of me so easily.
Do you know where we are?
And waking up every morning like it's just another day.
We can try again. You have to fight.
I have fought.
Not walk away whilst I'm still talking to you.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to Talk Africa. Soon we'll be turning our attentions to our main topic of the day with regards to medicines across the continent. It's been reported by the World Health Organization that medicines across the continent, most of them are fake. We'll touch on that very, very soon. But I just want us to touch on this story because I think it's very important, and it's been happening across the continent. Some are reported, some are not reported. And this is a story where a Lebanese man raped a 19-year-old girl in Ghana. A Lebanese national has been arrested for allegedly raping his 19-year-old house help. 4 policemen from the East Legon District Police Command arrested Haddad Rabi around 11:45 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, now this has caused a big upset amongst, especially not just in Ghana, but also people in the diaspora. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and the person was saying there seems to be a lot of this occurring when it comes to Africa, especially when you have foreigners coming there to work. Not so long ago, I think a few months ago, probably last year, where a Lebanese restaurant called Mawako, one of the workers there, one of the bosses threw a pepper in one of the workers' face. So, which again caused a big uproar when this surfaced. But I think it's important here on Talk Africa for us to discuss such issues. If you want to contribute, it's 0203 286 0185. If you want to go onto our Facebook and leave a comment, you can do so. It's GNTV UK or Talk Africa. All right, we're also live on Sky 291. So if you want to do so, you can do. Joseph, this is a story where it doesn't just focus at one particular thing. There's a lot of problems with this particular story.
It is criminal. It is outrageous. But the sad reality is that this thing happens in Ghana every other day, probably daily, except on this occasion in Accra, one culprit was apprehended. It happens that probably in this case the culprit is of non-African descent. In other words, probably these things happen where bosses or masters or bosses, people use power to rape maids and other house helps. It does not make it any better. I think the gruesome element of it is of the extra power, which is the non-African, non-identity power. This thing happens in Accra, it happens in Kampala, happens in Nairobi, happens across the African continent. When it's actually happening around the time when we're having discussions about Africans being used in the other side of Africa, Libya, by people who are lighter skinned and probably of non-African descent, meaning the Arab North, is extremely sad. You know that I co-host a weekly program hosted by a Ghanaian, but is very closely named, called Talking Africa, a radio program, and we're having a discussion on some of these issues only last week, very related, and we're saying that these things actually happen, but like we're saying in the early segments, from words, where are the actions? In this very particular case, this is something that has happened in Accra. African girls, particularly in the Middle East, are known, who go there to work as domestic workers, are known to be literally used and abused daily. And in fact, East and West African girls tend to be the predominant ones there, where some of these ones are beaten almost to death. Yeah. It happens particularly in Saudi Arabia and some of those other countries. Back onto this. How we are able to allow these things happen on our continent, how we are able to allow these things happen in our communities every day and again, is completely unacceptable. Clearly, recently there have been discussions about, you see, the abuse of women in the media, sexual abuse and sexual harassment. Some of these things are neither here nor there. To reach a stage where we actually here talking about rape, and to talk about rape on people who are most vulnerable, house helps, probably credit to this girl at 19, woman, okay, but at 19, who is able to attempt to resist, because most others probably don't, because boss has spoken. It is a sign that when are we going to take up our destiny as a peoples? When are we going to take up destiny as African peoples? And when some of us actually radically talk about African identities, Africanness, including in Brazil, one of the things we're saying is that until we are able to be confident as ourselves as a peoples, until we're able to have leaders who make sense in Addis Ababa at the African Union and indeed at Accra and Kampala and begin to use our monies correctly instead of abusing funeral monies like in South Africa, and then build our communities like we said 20 years ago at the London University when we talk about the African identity, that unless and until, just to conclude on this in context, that 50 years ago, which is now 60 years ago, Japanese were laughed at in America. As people, they're abused, that they've got bad-like eyes. Mm-hmm. But 10 years ago, the saying in America is that Japan buys America, meaning that Japanese turned around from people who were being abused. So once their economies grew, once they became real competitors and became, at the time, the second largest economy in the world, wherever Japanese went around the world, people looked at them seriously. Perhaps we need to be able to build on the Nana Doors and reach a stage where Africans were a people who are as serious as Barack Obama, so that when we talk, we're taken seriously. Maybe then, when we find people visiting Africa as tourists, before they think and act or touch an African, whether in the streets of London, Accra, or Kampala, they'll think again. So it is fairly broad.
Okay, Kofi.
Thank you very much. I think I take an exception. I'm totally diverse. I'm totally different from what my colleague put on the table. And in the sense that there are so many problems with the report itself. The report says now a girl was raped, and you say by a Lebanese boss, which is totally very, very dangerous. The man in question, the woman in question, what is their nationality? The so-called Lebanese.
Speaks and French.
I'll come to that. We've got first, second, third generation Lebanese descendants born in Ghana. Harizakor, we mentioned them by name. Yeah. And a lot of them have added positively to the development of our country. We shouldn't underestimate the reader. I went to school with a lot of them.
Okay, Kofi, let's come back to the issue.
What I'm trying to say is that Ghana is not a racial society. Dominantly, we are blacks. If you look at Jerry John Rawlings, for example, he's light skinned. Hannah Tete, light skinned. Obechebi Lamte, light skinned. They are Ghanaians. Absolutely Ghanaian like anyone. So this racist dimension to discussion, let us first remove it out of our discussion. We have important problem to deal with. Number one,
hold on. Before you carry on, there is a trend, okay, when especially the foreigners in Ghana tend to treat no. Most Ghanaians would tell you that. Hold on. And the reason why it's not reported because the Ghanaians or the Africans working are scared of losing their jobs. It's happening. We can
go down that line. I know what I'm saying.
Right, but then
the problem we are having here is that
let's not
hold on. Stronger are taking advantage
exactly.
Of those who are
exactly.
Yes.
And that's the part thing I talked about.
Yeah.
And identity.
No. That is not what we are talking about here. That's not what the issue you are raising. In Libya, these boys and girls who have been changed and man because they are different, because they are considered as foreigners.
It's an identity
and we are
issue.
Saying that we don't want to be like the Libyans, and we are sounding like that here. We should be careful. What we want to do.
This is a direct evidence that you really are in Ghana.
Be patient.
In that case.
Let's hear Kofi. Go on. We're listening to you. Kofi.
Now we had a girl in Ghana, right, who is a housemaid at the age of 19. She's supposed to be in school.
But what's that got to do with anything?
It has got everything to do with everything. Now, I'm telling you the cultural challenge, the economic challenge. She's vulnerable. The girl can't speak English. She only speaks Ewe
and French. Yeah.
Technically, the man who employed her, if we say we are talking about foreigners in Ghana, that girl, if we consider Togolese foreigners, she's one. But she is in Ghana as ECOWAS citizen. Now listen. Now, she can get a job. Be patient with me. She took a job as a maid in somebody's house, and the person was alleged to have raped her. The case was reported to the police. How professional were the police? When the girl reported the case, it could be alleged, it could be facts. The police went to the house, the man bribed them. Because they didn't say the man bribed them. We were told the man was ready with the money and he paid the girl her salary to leave his house. But there is an alleged case of rape. The police are supposed to do their job in the house.
Yeah.
Rather, the police seems to be siding with the man, who is a powerful man. We are looking at abuse of power against vulnerable person.
Okay.
If you see, we have a system. The girl working with this man, black market. Nobody know how they come into contract. Whether the girl is even protected. What is the document?
But
we need to put these things into place.
But we cannot move. We cannot move away from the fact that an abuse happened. We cannot move away from that.
Well, an abuse has been alleged to have happened. Please.
Yes, alleged to have happened. Yes, alleged to have happened. Yes, alleged to have happened. Yes.
So there will be investigation.
Yes.
And investigation. The police have told us that they are taking the case to court. Unfortunately, they should have done this better than they did now. We're even told so many abnormalities. If the girl had reported immediately to the police, she said this is not the first time. She was raped. She said this is the fourth, but she said this is the second
time.
No, incident.
Yeah.
But she said she was raped 4 times. In other words, probably the man does it and come back and do it again. Whatever be the case, she's vulnerable in the house. She's working in the house of this man, right? Paid her pittance. And in addition to that, when no one is at home, the man then take advantage
of the girl,
abusing her sexually. This is clearly established. As to whether it's a fact or not, we need to prove it. And that is why we have to bring this man after investigation by the police. He will be read before the court. Already we've been told that medical examination has been carried out on the girl, and it's confirmed there is something like that, although we sometimes have questions. I've been to prisons in Ghana checking on these issues. The police in Ghana sometimes, the justice system has a serious challenge, and until we wake up and let them get to understand that they shouldn't be sleeping on the job. In this country, they don't sleep on the job. They are after the I think Julius spoke more. I was here.
Quickly.
I will want to
Joseph, you're talking.
And I want to make it
quickly,
please.
I
want to make it very clear. Government is people, and people must be responsible. It is when we work, especially people like you and I and Joseph, who are lucky to be educated. We are educated so that children like this Children like this will also have a future. We were the past. We had the opportunity. Some people's taxpayers' money was used to educate us. Why are we not making use of that tax? The education we've got, the wisdom we've got, the time we've got. It's an opportunity for us to say things so that people who are in position of authority will understand that we are not sleeping. We are looking after them. And in fact, we form a group called Ghana Police Watch. We are watching them. And we are serious about them.
Not ECOWAS.
Ghana Police Watch. Okay.
Police Watch, Ghana.
All right.
We are not joking because there are a lot of abnormalities in the Ghana. Here they have independent police commission. That always, when there's a problem, we had an incident with a girl who was supposed to be issued a ticket, and the girl turned the whole thing. She's black, right? In fact, when we call in the police, because she didn't give you the details, the police came. When the police were going, this girl intentionally threw her own body on the car of the police because they took her details. Do you know what happened?
Well,
the whole of London was caught in.
All right, okay.
Ambulance, fire service, everybody was. Even we who started it.
All right, this is Talk Africa with me, Jones Ewa. I'm in the studio with Joseph Wachano, a political analyst on African affairs. Also, Kofi Ali Ekowa, citizens' rights advocate here in the studio. Kofi, please let me do this. All right, let me do this. When we come back, I'll give you enough time to talk. We're gonna take another break. When we come back, we will definitely look at the issue of fake medicines making its way onto the continent of Africa. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Beloved, God created man with the dust of the earth. God breathed the breath of life into mankind, so man became a living soul. It is therefore empirical to know and to understand that the earthly cannot survive without the heavenly. Faith today is designed to bring men and women of God from across the world to discuss developmental issues and current affairs backed by the scriptures and the gospels. This will enable us to have a better Ghana and a better world to live in. My name is Apostle Owahin Omaria Champon. I'm going to be your regular host. Remember, the light of God will shine. Don't miss it.
To another edition of Switch HQ. That's right, my name is Ludwig Jr. and from now on you're going to see my shows coming to you straight from London exclusively. What, really? You're going to be seeing events from here, you're going to be seeing interviews.
Happy birthday movies.
I think God listens to me a lot.
I'm good, thank you.
Exclusively.
Please, lady of first thing, keep what? Swish.
What if it is entertainment? This is the Met they added to his Swiss HQ about Bob.
Hello, my name is Dorothy, Miss Face of Ghana UK 2016. And I'm Sharon Rose. This is Mimi.
I came to blah, 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 blah. This is Ghana, man, so we're representing.
Swiss HQ, we say.
I'm just going to be in the crowd.
All right, you already know. My name is SARKODIE, a.k.a. you know what time it is, a.k.a. Money No Big Problem, a.k.a. what else? Now, stand up. You're watching Switch HQ. Woo!
E-News Redefined. Wondering what's going on in the life of your favorite entertainment personality? Wonder no more because the Daily Setbit has got you covered with the latest in entertainment news, gossip, fact, rumors, and of course, some sizzling interviews.
Not just that, did you know actor Jimmy Fox's real name is Eric Malon Bishop? I bet you didn't know. On the Did You Know segment, we bring you some mind-boggling facts you might not know about your favorite celebrity.
We don't only set the trend with our stories, we bring you trendy videos and images that have gone viral on social media. Your entertainment just got better.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Come back to Talk Africa with me, Joseph. Where Kofi is saying I'm not allowing him to talk, so he's probably start with his own radio station. All right, just to let you know, we are streaming live on Facebook. Go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK. You can leave your comments on there. Or Talk Africa, our Facebook page. We are also live on Sky Channel 291, also GN Radio. On TuneIn, you can listen to us. Now, let's turn our attentions to our main topic of the day. Now, according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 10 medical products circulating in low middle class income countries is either substandard or falsified. World Health Organization received 1,500 reports of cases of substandard or falsified products in their reports. And these, especially the medicines they're talking about here, are saying that anti-malarial tablets and antibiotics are the most commonly reported to be substandard or falsified. So if you do travel back home, or you do live back home and you need to get a prescription, or you need to get medication, make sure you read what's on the tin. You make sure you know exactly what it is that you are taking in. Joseph, this is alarming.
It is alarming, and my worry is that probably this is a fairly conservative figure. I would probably suggest, again, as I said, it's not scientific, that it could be as high as 1 in 5. And again, I probably speak from personal experiences. I have been unwell, thankfully, only with malaria in Uganda, in Kenya in the last 10, 15 years, and probably in Southern Africa. But probably the experience I had mainly in my own native Uganda and the town of Tororo, my main hometown, and a bit of Nairobi, is that this figure may be high. One clear example was a case when my nearly wife was a medical doctor at the time, and I got malaria. And then after going to the pharmacy, I'm actually told that... I'm actually told by the pharmacist that which of the drugs do you want? Do you want the original one or the non-original? So actually this guy's go ahead and tell you very openly. Now for me, I was being told, because this guy clearly knew that I know the issues, Most of the other people, not only would they actually price you arbitrarily, but they would actually give you what they think. Remember that some of these other drugs in many of these other pharmacies, people buy these drugs even without prescription. So this is a very alarming, very, very concerning matter on the African continent. The example I was giving was when I was told that I should either get specific drugs from Germany or the other from India, and which one should I pick. Clearly the Indian one was, interestingly, cheaper. But it also turned out that this guy was arguing that both of them were original. And so when I called my partner, who happened to be a doctor, she actually told me that, look, actually that does not fall within this very particular category. So I obviously went for the high, and obviously I was going for one which was going to apply to me because the money to me was not necessarily a problem. Most of the people, as the research report suggests, it's an option between paying for the very basic drugs, and it's actually, the report is very mild. It's not about a meal. An average rural African family, 50 pence is a lot of money for a week. Money that they will have, so 50 pence is a lot of money. And most of these drugs will be about that. So maybe, like we were saying much earlier, that maybe this is an opportunity wake-up call for us. What are our governments doing? What are our continents doing? But particularly, what are our governments doing in order to regulate these drugs? Where I know that in this case, where to talk about corruption, some government officials would be involved in the importation of drugs.
All right. Well, in your case, at least you had somebody with a medical background to let you know. That
and a relative ability to critique, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's take a quick listen. We spoke to a few people. Let's take a quick listen to what they had to say on this issue.
It's real, but as an individual, whenever you enter into a pharmaceutical shop, you have to just read any medicine they will give to you, whether it's fake or not, because there's an expiring date in written on the medicine.
Because I can say some are fake in the sense that you don't read, you don't take the expiring date, you don't check the expiring date on it. You just take because of what is happening to you, so you are in a rush to cure yourself.
What I've been taking in, I know it's real.
I have to know it because I'm a nurse, and when you are prescribing a drug, you should know that this drug is good for the patient before you prescribe it.
I don't think the medicine that I take in are fake, or I cannot say it's real too, because I don't know anything about medicine. I've not studied it in school, so I don't have any idea.
Well, when I go to the pharmacy to buy, let's say, a medicine, at least I read from the indications. So getting to know that whether it is fake or real, I'll use it. When it is fake, I'll know.
Okay, my make on this, I think most of them are fake.
How did they get into the country? Because we have an authority, that's the Food and Drugs Board, who is in charge of checking that no fake drugs or fake food enters into the economy.
Well, that was some bites that we got from speaking to people with regards to this issue we're talking about here. A report by the World Health Organization saying that the amount of medicine across the continent, somewhere than 1 in 10, is fake. Kofi?
Thank you very much. I like starting any subject with making the caption clear. Because if you are not able to get the nitty-gritty of what we are talking about, then we might be saying the same thing but differently understanding. What is fake? When we say something is fake, substandard. In other words, they are not genuine. Is that not true? When we say something is genuine, it means it's registered, especially drugs or an item, any item. It's registered, so you know the person or the source of production. And exactly what you are consuming is what is given to you. That is genuine. So if anything goes wrong, you can go to the manufacturer and have issues addressed. They can be sued in court because they patented their product.
That's what's supposed to happen.
And we understand that most products get their reputation because they've traveled over time. Experience, they have been improved upon. So the manufacturer did not start with what we will call today the best. At the time, it was the best, but it was actually substandard compared to what we have today, right? But you know, at the time, maybe you know what you are taking. So this is the migration from what is fake or substandard to genuine. Fake is when you go and take the same product that somebody has registered, and everybody know this is what they are buying, and you put something else inside, or you produce whatever you produce, even either better or the same, and then you label it by.
So what are you trying to get at? Because I'm not following you.
I'm looking at where we are and where we want to be with the issue of fake and genuine, and why we are struggling with this challenge and how to address them. In other words, if you are copying somebody's product, it's fake. It's fake not because your standard is not good, but because you are not what you said you are.
No, Kofi, it's fake because the amount of dosage in there haven't been measured. We don't know whether it works or it doesn't work. Whoever is taking it, because it hasn't been checked, you don't know how much they need to take. So that, therefore, it's fake.
It's fake because...
And also, hold on, let me come in. Let me just say one more thing. Medicines which are approved, each one of them, especially they have the barcodes on it, so it's easier to trace who the manufacturers are. In these cases, there are certain manufacturers that, although there's a barcode, but they cannot be traced. That is fake. That has made its way onto the continent.
And that is what I'm saying. We are saying the same thing, that the person who registered his own, he showed the dosage and the content and everything on the label.
But it hasn't been proven. COVID.
And it has been.
Been approved.
When you say it's genuine, it means that has been approved, that has been certified as accepted, because all drugs have to go through a certifying system to get it into the market. There are even here, everywhere in the world. Then somebody is producing the same thing, but unregistered and using another person's name. I don't know what so all the content, what was said to be the case, you are putting it on your label, but actually what is inside, maybe you put cassava inside a capsule, and you said, oh, it is what you call it, which are some of these things you take, some of the antibiotic destiny. So this is where the fake issue is coming. What are you feeding people? And now they are paying for what they don't intend to buy. And we are talking about consumption into the person. What causes some of this problem? Demand and supply.
Yeah.
there is always, if there's
there's no demand for fake drugs.
There's
no demand.
Be patient with me. Like Joseph said, if you go into the shop, right, and something is sold for 10 maybe pounds, and you go and they say it's £2 because of your income, right? You are interested in the £2 one. You are not interested in the £10 one because you thought they are all the same. So you are being sold something that if you know exactly what you are buying, you may not consume it because you are there to be cured, not to be killed. And sometimes even if you know, because you can't afford it, psychologically you feel when you take it. And most of our population are illiterate. Now let me move on to the next level. This pharmaceutical company.
Hold on, Kofi. Whether most of the population are illiterate or not,
the state is supposed to protect them.
Exactly, my point.
Now,
exactly.
law and order has broken down.
So, all right, don't worry. I'll come back to you. But before we carry on, let me just read a few messages on Facebook. This is from YK. YK is saying, does this Kofi man just want to be bluntly controversial? He is not making any sense on this rape issue. In fact, he is talking nonsense. The issue is rape. This is just the tip of the iceberg. That was from YK. Thank you very much for your comments. You can also share your comments. You can go on our Facebook page, Talk Africa, or GNTV UK to leave your comments on there. Or if you want to call into the studio, it's 0203-286-0185. We'll do our best to read your comments out. Now, Joseph, before I come back to you, Kofi, now there is an agency which is working with the African Union, and they're saying that due to the non-existence or weak or outdated legal framework, as a result, most of the national medicines regulatory authorities have limited capacities to approve medicines in any shape or form. So there is a loophole where people have capitalized on that.
That's clearly at the center of it, number one. Number two, I hinted earlier, which is a question about corruption. And I think Africans need to wake up to these realities, and as Naredo was talking about it, maybe African citizens need to take up ownership and ensure that their governments are actually held accountable in a criminalized way. Because in the UK, there is NICE, as they would call it, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. NICE regulates drugs in this country in terms of testings and subjects to, including issues to do with quality and pricing. And yet the system in this country is such that there are drugs that you'll go and pick up at the counter. There are drugs which must be prescribed by doctors. There are drugs, in local general practice, and then there are drugs that can only be prescribed at a higher level. And I happen again as to have been privileged, to have been surrounded by somebody who is a consultant, young consultant of African descent, by the way, at a level of antibiotics. And when you have basically informal conversations, and you see the implications on the African continent, on our health, it is huge. In the absence of the regulatory bodies, it means in nation-state regulatory bodies, probably drug authorities in Africa is one of those things that need to be centralized. But in the absence of the national regulatory bodies, drugs will come in. And talking about demand and supply is partly also about pricing, but partly about need. If somebody has got a headache and you go down the road, it will probably not even matter about how much it is, but what is actually down the road available. And I've actually had to go around my local area, and I'm driving, and I really have to look for where to buy medicine at 8 o'clock in the night. And at that stage, probably you even pay price demand. The point is, if at the case I am going because I've been told this is the kind of medicine that I need. Like, amazingly, actually, the feedback you got on the streets is amazing, that people are even able to talk about expiry dates when we're actually talking beyond expiry, whether or not actually it's real. So actually people are quite wise about it. But when the real pain is there and you need the drugs, probably you don't even care where it's coming from. The bottom line is somebody needs to take authority. That's why we have the police, where we've got the nation states. That's why we pay taxes to certain elements of authority. If we can't sort out our health as a peoples, and if we can't sort out our educations, if we can't, therefore, sort out our law and order, then we have a problem as Africa, as a continent. But quickly, I happen to have met an Asian multimillionaire in the streets of London who told me that that he wanted to be a net supplier of certain elements of drugs, to basically buy a contract in a particular nation state. And up to reaching that country, he reached there with a group of his own core friends. He happens to have connection to that very particular place. When he reached there, he found that the brother of a president had already taken a group of certain people and they were undercut by half. And in his opinion, the issue was not only that this country was going to pay for more than twice the amount of money that it was actually supplying, but he wasn't really even very sure whether or not what they were going to supply was going to benefit the nation state. I say it authoritatively on camera and all live on the program because it's something that I'm able to back up.
Okay, Kofi, let me have you quickly before we run up.
Well, I'll do it quickly. You see, we can talk till the kingdom come. Medicine is life. It's a big business. Those involved in it will do everything. We watch documentary, even in this country, where they work hard to be in charge. When a person is sick, is vulnerable, and he will do anything, consume anything that will cure him. But this is where we are. We have turned ourselves into a nation of importers of everything, including the medicine.
Kofi,
almost 20%.
Kofi, I have to interject because I have Nina Bobby on the phone, who's a prescribing pharmacist. We've got her on the phone. We'd like to just talk to her this morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Nina, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nina. I just want to ask one or two questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I just want to ask one or two questions, Nina. With what we're talking about here, with what the health organization have said about the report, 1 in 10 medicines across the continent being fake. First and foremost, how does things happen here? What's the process here in the UK to stop fake drugs from making it through to behind the counter?
Well, there's a number of different bodies, regulatory bodies, which standards. So I think you've probably heard of FDA. They work with the MHRA and they license medication and ensure that there's certain standards that are met before medicines reach the shelves. So they must have batch numbers, they must look authentic, they must have passed through like a 7-year, the drug itself must have passed through a 7-year process where it goes through labs and it's licensed to say, okay, these drugs actually work and have been tested on animals, etc. But before it actually reaches our pharmacy shelves, they must meet certain criteria, which usually are to do with packaging and also to compare the actual tablets to the people who actually manufacture them. So we cut out any second-hand people bringing fake drugs in just to make money.
Okay, and finally, I know you're probably at ward now, but finally, how can one tell if a medicine is substandard or falsified?
Well, first of all, if it doesn't have a batch number, it definitely doesn't belong on the shelves, because before everything goes on the shelves, they're made in batches and they have special numbers assigned to each and every packet, and that's the packet's authentic number. So if it doesn't have a batch number, that's the first sign. And sometimes if you've bought drugs earlier and you find that, oh, maybe the package's colour sort of changed, or the font is a bit different, I think that's when you can speculate and say, this isn't actually the real thing.
Thank you very much for talking to us this morning. That was Nina Bobby, a prescribing pharmacist we spoke to. I know she's currently busy right now. Thank you very much for taking time out to talk to us. And we need to wrap up. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. I would like to say a big thank you to Joseph Ochiano, Kofi Ali, as always. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is Talk Africa with me, John Sewa. We'll do it again, same place, same time next week. Stay safe. Goodbye.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Rover, I'm what made that. Me wake up this morning feeling alright again. There's a blessing from the Father. Wake up this morning feeling great again. It's a blessing from the Father. Made up and built and me right again. It's a blessing from the Father.